Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Look, there's been a lot of discussion about what the actual so-called Biden infrastructure plan is. Well, it may be easier for us to start with what it is not. First, it's not an infrastructure package. In fact, less than 6% of the funding of this package will go to roads, bridges, and highways. A little more than that if you add in high-speed internet. It's not a jobs plan. The administration's claims that this proposal is going to create 19 million new jobs has already been debunked. The plan is not bipartisan. Even though House Democrats hold the slimmest majority in modern history, they've decided to go all in and go all alone once again. It didn't have to be this way. Let me give you just an example. We passed long-term bipartisan funding for the National Flood Insurance Program, and it was reported unanimously out of committee just 2 years ago. Now, emboldened by their so-called one-party rule, Democrats have tossed it aside for the bill we're considering today, which caters to some stakeholders and makes the program far less sustainable. Now, I don't want to do the Democrats' jobs for them, but if this bill doesn't need bipartisan support, since you're going to try and sneak this into the so-called infrastructure plan, why wouldn't you address climate change in the NFIP, in the National Flood Insurance Program? It's a serious question, and frankly, I'm shocked I have to ask it. Why does this partisan National Flood Insurance Program bill do nothing to address climate change, the risk associated with weather-related events, even though at the very core of what the NFIP ensures is focused on the impact of climate change? Now, I'll leave it for you all to discuss amongst yourselves. The Biden plan is not about economic growth and prosperity. Democrats don't want to admit the economy is thriving because that might be harder. If they admit that, it might be harder to pass the next multi-trillion-dollar spending bill. They don't want to admit that there are job openings across the country that aren't being filled. In my district, there are massive labor shortages. For example, a local hotel operator who pays a living wage with benefits typically employs 140, 160 people. He has 50 to 60 openings right now. And then you look at you look at a forger in the biz right now who's helping make bricks for the housing industry. He's paying $20 an hour, and he cannot keep up because of labor shortages. And so, look, these things are happening across the country, and I know that's not conforming with the narrative by some of my Democrat colleagues in Washington. But finally, the Biden plan is not a housing bill. More funding will not solve the problem associated with housing supply shortages or our homelessness problems in this country. We need to rethink how we provide affordable, suitable housing for all Americans. So what is, in fact, the Biden plan? Well, frankly, it's like the so-called COVID relief plan. It's a liberal wish list that Hill Democrats have been carrying around for a long time. And the attempt is to fundamentally restructure the role of the federal government, to expand it beyond its traditional role that we've seen over the last 50 years. No longer will the private sector, or small businesses for that matter, be the engine of job creation. They want it to be the federal government. That's you don't have to read the New York Times opinion page to see that. You can just see it in the discussions in Capitol Hill. And when it comes down to this is a plan to eliminate jobs in the private sector and then have the federal government spend trillions of dollars to recreate them. And look, this is not the right approach. Our time would be better spent today going out in our neighborhoods, filling potholes in the streets, because at the very least, that's actual infrastructure. I yield back.